She then goes on to quote the notorious misogynist Roy F. Baumeister, who wrote Is There Anything Good About Men? And this is a book that I'm familiar with because feminists like Kristen J. Anderson, author of Modern Misogyny, Anti-Feminism in a Post-Feminist Era, has been very critical of it. Rachel quotes Roy, the misogynist, as saying, I'm certainly not denying that culture has exploited women, but rather than seeing culture as patriarchy, which is to say, a conspiracy by men to exploit women, I think it's more accurate to understand culture, e.g. a country or religion, as an abstract system that competes against rival systems, and that uses both men and women, often in different ways, to advance its cause. To put it another way, women are the choosers. So that's not what patriarchy means. No one is claiming that if we live in a patriarchy, it means it's a conspiracy by men. When we talk about patriarchy, it's simply a social system where men hold more power, and this oppresses women. Often it's systemic and not something people are consciously aware of. It is not a conspiracy. There is not a group of men sat there going, ooh, how are we going to oppress women today, boys? It's more that thanks to a very long history, today the whole system and organisations and laws and rules and social norms all sustain a misogynistic society without people being even consciously aware that it's happening. The same is true for racism, homophobia, transphobia, ableism, and so on. When we talk about things like patriarchy or, like big ideas, it's not necessarily like a conscious thing. It's generally something systemic. To say patriarchy is a conspiracy by men and therefore it can't be real is a complete misunderstanding and misrepresentation of what it actually is. It's a straw man fallacy. Simple as that. I wouldn't really trust much of what Roy says in general though, because he's got plenty wrong before and he spends most of his book, Is There Anything Good About Men, misrepresenting everything about feminism. To give you an example, in her brilliant book, Kristen Anderson quotes him at several points and summarizes one of his arguments as this. Baumeister's argument is that early feminists favoured gender equality, but today's feminists favour superiority of women over men. Feminism has been hijacked by man-haters. Baumeister never mentions a single feminist by name who represents this viewpoint, yet he is confident they exist. Note that it is feminists who are against equality in this worldview, not men and not patriarchy. From Baumeister's perspective, if it weren't for feminists trying to get ahead of men, the playing field would be level and there would be equality between the sexes. In another example, she writes, in his book, Is There Anything Good About Men?, Roy Baumeister blames feminism for this dynamic. And she quotes him saying, from reading feminist accounts of gender politics, one gets the impression that men and women have been collective enemies throughout history and still are. Baumeister provides no citations for these unnamed feminists, so the reader doesn't know what feminist accounts he is referring to, but his personal opinion is at odds with the empirical research studies we have examined here. So it seems that Roy just spends a lot of time making stuff up without sources, misunderstanding key terms, and I just wouldn't trust much of what he says on this topic at all. I read more of his book actually just to see some more of what he says, and while he admits that in no society on earth today are women fully equal to men, in every country in the world men rank higher than women. Women always have an inferior place. Moreover, it has for the most part always been thus as far back as we have evidence. I don't like the way he writes, but anyway. He goes on to say, feminist theory accused men of plotting against women. Men banded together to push women down. The imaginary feminist has a quick answer ready for any questions about the origins of gender inequality. Oppression. So once again, and throughout his entire book, he just misunderstands even the basics of what feminists say about oppression, patriarchy, and misogyny. Another part of his book says, it has become conventional wisdom to explain these events as based on the idea that men banded together to exploit and oppress women. At some point during the prehistoric era of gender equality, supposedly there was a conspiracy by men to seize power for themselves and push women down. There is essentially no record of such a conspiracy or historical change. The imaginary feminist likes to say that part of the male conspiracy included erasing it from history so it would never be known. And he talks a lot about, the imaginary feminist as though, he's trying to belittle feminism. But in reality, it is an imaginary feminist because no actual feminist believes this. It is nonsense. It is a blatant straw man fallacy. No one believes there is a conspiracy by, a select few men to say, ooh, let's suppress women. No one believes that. It's a very bizarre book by Roy. If you'd like me to go into more detail about it in a future video, I can do. But Yeah, I think it kind of makes sense that Rachel is referencing him and quoting him and believes his nonsense because, in some ways it's just as crazy as her book.